Welcome to another episode of Overrated and Underrated. This is another fitness and general health edition. So today's episode is going to focus on this idea of trying to be perfect all the time versus trying to be as consistent as possible. So what's overrated here is this all or nothing mindset that ends up tripping up so many people because they're either perfect with their nutrition and their training or they absolutely fly off the handle, which leads to those negative self-perceptions and that dark monologue, but also hinders what you're trying to do as far as taking care of your general health and your fitness aspirations. We are all human, and being perfect all the time is impossible. And if you push for that level of perfectionism and don't meet it the way that you feel you should be, you end up feeling like a failure. But life happens, and things pop up that interrupt your normal routine. Some good, some sad, and some terrible. But you shouldn't be beating yourself up because you missed an exercise because there was an emergency that popped up, or because you chose to have dinner with your friends or your family and messed up on your nutrition. Life happens, and it's simply ridiculous and unfair to yourself to be so controlled and restricted by your routine that you can't engage in the pop-ups that happen in everyday life. If you do choose to live like that, that's a pretty restricted and inflexible lifestyle that I can only imagine is not that enjoyable when you think about the long term. This all or nothing mindset is setting you up to measure yourself harshly against unrealistically high standards. And you'll probably see better results when you loosen that rope around yourself and just focus on trying to be in tune with yourself and building a consistent routine that works well within your life and has room for that flexibility and balance that is part of life. Something that doesn't feel impossible to maintain and allows room for you to be human. Which brings us to what is underrated here, being as consistent as possible. And this will certainly look different for everyone because we all have different life circumstances. But things happen and you trip up on your normal routine, and that is perfectly okay. When you focus on being more consistent, it allows you to have a more free and healthy mindset when it comes to your self-perception and ability to care for yourself as a whole. Rather than dwelling on the hiccups and the mess-ups that you feel you've had, you should focus on the progress that you've made so far. So what if you couldn't have trained or eaten the way you had wanted to once or twice this week? Have you been relatively consistent over the past couple of months? Sweet, that's a much better reflection of the work you've been putting in. You didn't fail by messing up on your routine. The only way you can possibly fail is if you completely give up on yourself. And it takes a whole lot more effort to actually give up on yourself than it does to acknowledge that life came up, you might have slipped off your routine a little bit, and to just get back to that track of being as consistent as you possibly can with the routine that does work for you. So figure out what routine typically does work best for you, what leaves you feeling good, what addresses all of your needs, and what doesn't deprive you in many or any ways, and stick with that as best and as consistently as you possibly can. But again, remember that you are human, and it is okay to leave room for freedom and flexibility when it comes to altering your routine. Especially if this means that you will be able to live an overall more fulfilling life. Thank you for tuning into this episode of Overrated and Underrated. I hope you guys enjoyed, and again, I have more coming your way.